Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Make Things Better podcast. Today I have Nick Tsim on the podcast to talk to us a little bit about software engineering. So my first question for you, Nick, is can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you went from graduating with a chemistry degree to working as a senior software engineer at our company, Hive IT?
Yeah, that's a bit of a long story, I suppose, but yeah, I used to quite enjoy working with computers when I was younger, but I never really got crossed over into being a proper programmer or anything. But in my final year of university, I was just doing a project involving computers, and that kind of just piqued my interest a little bit. At the time, it wasn't anything serious programming. It was just little really basic scripts and things. But yeah, it kind of made me want to explore the whole area of programming a lot more. And it kind of went from there, really. It took about 4 or 5 months for me to go transition from doing chemistry at university to actually get my first kind of grad scheme job, I suppose. It wasn't like a proper grad scheme job, but it was at a little company over in Sheffield as well called Switch Stance. Yeah, that was a really good opportunity for me, because it kind of got my foot in the door, and it's kind of just snowballed from there ever since, really. Yeah, just working constantly for the last it's nearly been 6 years now, which is pretty long time.
So throughout your degree, did you ever think that you'd end up going into software engineering?
No, I didn't. It was kind of just a really at last moment kind of decision, because I was a bit umming and ahhing about doing chemistry professionally for a while, and then it just ended up thinking I don't really, I'm not feeling this, some people can't, they don't really explain it too well, I suppose. But for me, it was just I don't really I don't feel passionate about this enough to keep doing it professionally. So I just kind of decided, yeah, I'd move into programming, because it seemed to be something where because if you're working with computers all day long, you kind of start getting interested in how do people actually make it actually work.
Yeah,
that was kind of my main motivation, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it is funny how we use so much technology and the majority of us don't really understand what's gone in to make it actually work and program. So exactly. I do find that fascinating myself.
Yeah, it's kind of once you've kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit, it's not as glamorous as you might think it is, and there's not nearly as much, when you see in films, there's just lines of code on monitors all flashing by. It's just nothing like that. It's very boring in comparison. So,
I'm sure it's not. Sure, it's not too boring. I don't know.
I find it quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, what do you like specifically about being a software engineer?
Yeah, for me, it's all about the puzzle solving aspect of it, I think. So, yeah, every day is usually there's something new, slightly different about the kind of problems you're encountering, and being able to solve them in kind of progressively more elegant ways is kind of what I'm kind of really most interested in, I suppose. So when you start off as a beginner, you're usually doing things that are quite simple, but they get the job done, but they don't really solve the problem elegantly. But then as you learn more and more, you kind of start applying new techniques and new solutions to your problems to kind of get to this to a better kind of end point, basically. And that's part of the kind of the thing that keeps me coming back to code every day, is just being able to kind of approach problems in different ways. And then there's also just the aspect of it, when you actually build something, you can actually see it working, you've made a thing, you can look at it and be oh yeah, I made that, that's really quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that is really cool. What is your favorite project that you've worked on with Hive IT or any other company?
Yeah, so I'd probably say our current project with the Department for Education, we're working on the Explore Education Statistics platform, which is pretty pretty cool. Yeah, we at Hive kind of like have full full ownership over it. So yeah, it's been it allows us to have a bit more like kind of ownership over it and actually be able to say, call the shots on what we kind of do with it. And yeah, the team's just really great. We have like one of the best like product owners I've ever worked with. Shout out to Laura. She's if she ever listens to this. Yeah, the project's just quite interesting as well because we're solving kind of like data problems. Yeah, there's quite a lot of data that the DFE wants to kind of like get out there for people to kind of analyze and like look at, but they don't, previously they didn't really have a good way of doing that. So a lot of it was just like putting big bundles of data like in like a CSV format onto like a page, and someone would have to download it and open like the potentially like massive files in Excel and then look through that. But now we've kind of created this platform where users can actually go into the data and like immediately see what like how it all kind of fits together, rather than like have to kind of figure out what all this raw data is supposed to do. So it's like I think a lot better, I would say, but like there's still like a lot of things that we need to do on it, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Sounds like an absolutely massive project though, like the amount of data involved, it just sounds vast. How do you go about tackling that? Like, what was the starting place for approaching and trying to find a solution to that problem?
Well, I didn't directly do a lot of all the initial work on that stuff. We have a really good team, and we kind of like have like back-end engineers and like front-end engineers. At the time I was doing mostly front-end stuff, but I was semi-involved in like kind of the back-end stuff as well. We went through a bunch of iterations, shall we say, of trying to get it to work. Like, it wasn't like a straightforward we know exactly what to do. The problem is like with kind of, it's about standardization of the data, because like the DFE has all these different departments within the DFE, and they themselves like create different like sets of data that previously looked quite different, and nowadays like they've kind of, and this isn't just us as well, the DFE themselves are like working hard to like kind of standardize their data so that when the data comes into our platform, it's already gone through like an entire pipeline to try and like clean it up and get it into a format that works within DFE, within our platform, basically. So yeah, this is quite a big effort across like two organizations essentially, but yeah, like it's been pretty rewarding because if you use the tool, it does actually work fairly well, I think.
I've seen the tool. I think I watched a video of Liz from our team talk about it a few years ago, maybe on Sheffield Digital's podcast, and just like seeing the difference was quite satisfying, I'd say. Because it does look like it's improved quite a lot, and obviously that can be extremely useful. So in your job, how much of your day do you think you spend actually writing code?
So it depends really. Most of the time I wouldn't say I actually spend, like, people might have this kind of assumption that coders are like constantly just like on their keyboards, just like hammering out code. It's just like looking at the Matrix or something, you know what I mean? It's really not that, and a lot of it I would say is actually reading and just purely understanding like what you're actually writing, but also like what other people have written. So like a lot of this work we do at Hive is actually just like reviewing each other's code. So like this is all part of like a code review process, basically. And that does take up a fairly significant amount of time, but it's quite like good because we can kind of like make each other's code better, and like we're kind of always like keeping on top of kind of the code as a whole, rather than like thinking I have this like one thing I need to deliver, and I'm just going to ignore everyone else whilst I'm just getting that done. That's like not how it really works. And if you want to like run an efficient team, you want to like be able to actually have that kind of redundancy and have people know about everything, rather than like people that just try and just get their single part of the system done. So yeah, like, I would say it's about 30% coding, 40% like reading, understanding, and then there's like 30% for like communicating and talking to other people on the team, and all the other stuff that you have to do in your job that isn't like actually producing something. You know what
Yeah,
I
sure. That makes sense.
mean?
Do you like different people's working styles kind of create any sort of conflicts, or how do you get on with working with people? Because there's some people like more sensitive to owning their own code, and then you're writing and
Yeah.
reading other people's code, and how does that really work out?
Well, this is a tricky question. I think like for sure there are certainly personalities in the industry. You can see it on Twitter as well, and like just across the industry as a whole. Like this is definitely something that like people can get a bit like a bit precious about, because you if you create something, you do feel like it's your baby, don't you?
Yeah,
It's hard to like take criticism for sometimes about it, but like it's natural to feel that way. But I think like gradually, the more that you do code and the more that you do communicate with other people about code, the less attached you start to feel about it. I don't know if there's an easy way to kind of like for people to feel that less, but I would say that just participating in the whole like kind of code review process and like kind of or like checking each other's code and being just trying to be open to people's suggestions about things is like the main way of doing it. Obviously, there's the feedback itself as well. Like people do, so I'm guilty of it as just as much as anyone else. But sometimes you might write something that's just a little bit too blunt, or like you put it in the wrong way, and so someone might take it like in the wrong way. Most of the time, for me, I'm trying to like suggest changes that are like you could do this, or you could this might make it better, but I'm not trying to tell you directly. Not most of the time anyway. Sometimes I'm like, you do need to change this. This isn't gonna fly. So yeah, it's just like kind of getting that kind of balance, really. It's like it's people's feelings after all, and it's just like good communication, isn't it? Like to be, you're not trying to like make someone feel bad when you well, most people aren't trying to make people feel bad when they're just like doing code reviews.
yeah, sure. That makes sense. What skills and perhaps character traits do you think are useful as a software engineer?
Um, yeah, so maybe I would say there's probably a few things here. Uh, I'd say one of the main things would be that you want to be asking for help quite a lot, like especially when you're first starting out. Like you really like can't be afraid of asking for help, and that could be through like so many different means nowadays. Because like we've got like massive social media networks that like give there's so many people that are willing to give up their time like for basically free, like if you ask for it. And like you can do that really easily. Like you can go on Twitter, you can go on Reddit, you could go and well, I mean, probably don't go on Hacker News, but yeah, there's like a whole bunch of communities you can ask for help in, and yeah, that'd be a good place to start. I'd also think about like just having that kind of graft mentality, I suppose. Like especially when you're first starting out, it's because like there's so much stuff you just don't understand. Like I remember really vividly just like looking at code back in the day. Like I'd just be like, I don't understand. I'm so confused. Like I'm just losing my mind here. Like just trying to understand this stuff, and then like there is just this moment at one point after you've done it long enough where it's just like I know exactly what's happening now. You know what I mean? It just clicks. Like and everything just kind of falls into place. But the problem is like kind of getting those building blocks in your kind of experience so that you can actually work your way up to that point. Is it can feel like a bit of a gap, a bit of a chasm, I suppose. Which can be quite difficult for people. It could be a little bit like demotivating for people, but if you push through that pain and just like kind of ignore all of the complexity as much as possible and just try and I want to do one thing, like how can I do it in the simplest way possible, and you just keep doing that again and again until you keep gradually building more and more complicated things, basically.
Yeah,
I think that's the main thing.
so you have like a kind of, it's like building blocks. You're just building up those blocks over time, and then you have that skill, and then you can use that in the future, and you just keep on learning continuously.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you get actual paid work and you're actually like working at a company, it really helps if you have like seniors that are like willing to help you out as well. Like that really like accelerates your growth, because yeah, there is like only so much you can do when you're doing it on like a voluntary basis. Like, you know, like if you're doing it on because it's your job and there are other people that it's their job to help you, like your growth goes like through the roof. So it's like I would like from my experience, I would say if you can get some like freelance work earlier on, like if possible, it doesn't have to be like complicated stuff, but like just working with other people that are also coding is like it's gonna like help you a lot, you know, just to have that kind of feedback process basically. And I guess that's partly why, you know, people might still think that going to university for like programming is probably a good idea, because you'll be in that environment where people like are all doing the same thing. And yeah, that might be true, but there isn't any reason that you can't do it like outside of university nowadays as well, because like if you go out there and look for other people to help you out, then you'll find them, you know.
Yeah, sure. I guess you can teach yourself a lot of things as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's so I don't know. I for me it felt like there wasn't a lot of resources at the time, but maybe that's because I was just didn't know where I was looking. But nowadays, like it's all there's so much material on just on YouTube itself now. It's just like you can easily like learn to code like to a decent level just by using YouTube. There's also like sites like free code camp, I think, like just like publish literally entire courses for free. You know, like you can get into coding like for very little like money. Basically, the barrier to entry is very low now, but you know it's just the kind of learning process that a lot of people have to like stick with, which I think like not everyone's cut out for, I guess. Like, but you know,
Yeah.
if you do stick with it, so I think like ultimately is like quite a rewarding journey for, you know, well, from my personal experience, I'm not going to say that everyone feels the same way about it, but
Yeah, of
yeah,
course. Also, you mentioned there how there's some like character traits which people may have, and you need to be perhaps a little bit disciplined at times. How do you find kind of concentrating on code? Because it seems to me like it's the type of work where you could really get into it and really get that sort of fulfilling deep work where you're like
yeah,
you can't you almost don't want to leave it because there's like a problem there, there's a
yeah,
potential solution and you want to
yeah,
find that solution. So
yeah.
I don't know, like with other jobs I've had in the past, maybe you're going to have like distractions, but how
Yeah.
distracted can you get as a coder and how important is concentration and focus?
I'd say it is really important, and I'm currently dealing with this exact problem right now because I'm like it's one of these problems which I haven't had like to deal with like in like quite a while. It's like a lot of complexity just like as reveals itself as you're like working through the problem. So what starts off as like, oh, this is looks fairly simple on the surface is like, oh yeah, now I've just like fallen into a cave of complexity and I'm just like trying to swim. I'm trying to swim to get out. It's just like, yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. So that's when, yeah, it kind of feel having distractions can feel a little bit like, you know, you're kind of breaking your flow a little bit. Yeah, it is a bit of a struggle. I think for other people, like they can definitely be affected quite a lot by it because, you know, I think it's in popular culture, but it's kind of like people kind of know it as like getting into the zone, don't they? You know, right? Like for code, yeah, you have this kind of stereotype of coders as like they need, you know, once they're in the zone and they're in flow, it's like if you break them out of that, they're going to be just like really annoyed. I wouldn't say that's the case with everyone, like I really wouldn't, but you know, you do see it in some people that are like, yeah, like if you kind of disturb them in the middle of something important, and I've felt that way at times in the past myself, like when you just like I'm so close to getting the solution to this, and now I've got this like 3 hour meeting that's just going to completely like disrupt like my, you know, my thought process. It's just like that can be a bit frustrating, but like no, you got to just be okay with it because at the end of the day, like your job isn't just to code. Your job is to actually work with a team most of the time. Well, it depends on if you're working with a team or not, but yeah, if you're working with a team, you've got to be able to communicate with your peers. You've got other problems going on at the same time. It's not, you have to be able to like multitask basically. So yeah, there is like a level of, you know, you need to be able to do a bit of context switching, and especially like at Hive because we have quite a lot of different like projects going on. You know, context switching is quite a frequent thing here, I think. Like, which you might not get at other companies where, you know, you're producing like a single kind of product. Like there are a lot less distractions in those kind of environments, but I do find the kind of like, you know, the variety of work at Hive is quite, yeah, keeps me quite interested as well.
Yeah, because there is a range of projects, isn't there? The other thing I guess we have is like stand up every day. So every day at 2 p.m., I'm seeing you in stand up, obviously, and we're having a conversation with, 10 to 20 odd people at Hive sharing what we're doing. And I think that can be quite useful sometimes to maybe take a break from your work. On other days, you might just be in the middle of something, and obviously it's not compulsory to attend, so that's cool as well. Talking about Hive IT, what is maybe your favorite, or what do you like about working at Hive IT in particular?
So I'd say it's mostly about the relaxed environment, because everyone's like so chilled out, everyone's so friendly. I know like a lot of people at other companies do say that, but like Hive is, everyone like kind of works as like one big family, you know what I mean? It's like, I think everyone really gets on, like we all kind of get each other. And I think it really shows, because like staff turnover is so low at Hive. Like we rarely lose people. So yeah, it's like, it's just really good work environment. But for me, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's like the kind of variety of work. I really enjoy, being able to just do different things, because I think like I do like working on single projects, but sometimes like you do want to just like do something else every now and then. And you can, if you're working on a single project for like years and years, that can get a bit dull. Some people like absolutely are fine with that, but for me, I think I do quite enjoy having a bit of variety. And it's also about like the work we do as well. So we do a lot of charity sector work as well. That's really good, I think, because I do think it's good that we're doing that, like our little bit, basically. Like I think that's a nice part about Hive, because like you don't see it a lot in every company, so it's good that we're doing that. And it gives you like that kind of sense of satisfaction in your work, that you're actually helping people and you're helping your clients, and you're like, everyone's kind of winning from the situation, basically. That's like, I think the nice thing about it all.
Yeah, it does always feel like it's always a sort of win-win situation for everyone involved, and we build really nice relationships with our clients, and we can see that it's actually helping society, and that's having a positive impact, which is kind of what we're all about at Hive, which is awesome. On that topic, what would you say people can do to make things a little bit better in the world? This is the kind of cliche now question. I'm going to be asking this. I'm going to be asking everyone this, but in your opinion, what can people do to make things better in the world?
Okay. So if we're talking about tech and coding, I guess it'd be good if like people took a bit more time to do like stuff for non-profits, charities, like trying to do, offer non-profit plans if they're offering a product, or, taking up pro bono work if they're doing like, if they work in, if they do contract work or whatever, just trying to like help out your fellow humans, try and like do a bit better in the world. That's a really, fairly straightforward thing, but I think like it does get missed out by quite a lot of places. I think especially with like some companies where their profit margins are actually humongous, it's kind of like, they should be doing a bit more to like help people out. I'm not going to name any names, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. What I like about asking this question is like everyone tends to bring a little bit of something fairly personal, or something that they know that they perhaps already try and do it at least. And I think that's really cool, because everyone's sort of trying to make the world a little bit better. So far, my guests anyway, like on this podcast, I don't feel like I'm going to be getting on people who are like just bad people, Like the aim of the podcast is to make things better. We're trying to get good people on, right?
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to hear everyone's answers to that. So thanks for coming on, Nick. You've been an awesome guest. It's been really interesting. I've learned a lot, so thanks for that. And thanks to everyone listening as well. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode.